today, in case anybody's curious.
Oh, God.
No, that's why I stayed downtown.
I was on a job site in Bel Air, and I says, you know what? I'm coming straight here. There's no way. I took ambulance to supply to Williamsburg Road to go out. And they were
I just decided to come.
Oh, it's just unreal.
Like, really?
Right, I figure if you don't have a life, I don't have a life. How about that?
Gotta wonder.
For her, we wouldn't even have these.
So I came back to the construction zone, and it wasn't any longer.
You know, my husband, he nothing happened.
Sure.
Oh, you don't have a life?
So I didn't know where to look.
No, I said nothing will happen.
Actually
It'll be
put in
fine.
the two words.
Well, for gosh sakes.
Right up.
I will tell you.
Well, what I
Find an
understood
article
from
about
Bob,
me using
talking
the
to
search
Bob
term
quite a
hurdy.
while ago.
My name's in there.
We've got about a minute before we'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, so I'll announce it when it happens.
25 years.
To me also. Needed evaluation.
I can hardly believe it.
Those are the ones that.
You know what Chuck sent to me this morning? He sent me a U.S. Navy bomber pilot quote from World War II. And it said, if you're taking flak, you're over the target.
Now, whether we enroll in
I
that.
thought that was very sweet.
That's how I look at it. They're saying.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock, and I will officially announce the opening of the Wednesday, April 14th meeting of Grand Traverse County Ways and Means Committee. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next thing, please, Bonnie, is roll call.
See if I can find it.
Johnson?
Here.
Crawford?
Here.
Klaus?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Kropa?
Here?
Max Bauer?
Here.
Lathrop?
Yes. Okay, does anyone have any deletions or additions or changes to the March 18th minutes? Okay, then they'll stand as read. It's time for the first public comment. Bonnie, would you help us?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak. It shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Thank you, Bonnie. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment? Yes, sir, please come up.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tim Hinckley, 3015 East Partridge Court, Traverse City. I am the president of the Traverse City Boom Boom Club. Our sole mission is to provide a solution to satisfy the funding and production for the annual 4th of July fireworks display over West Grand Traverse Bay. We're a Michigan 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Most people don't really think about how a fireworks display actually gets organized and paid for. It's as if there's a magical fireworks fairy that just makes it happen. The truth is that there's a lot of work in putting together a legal and safe fireworks display, and along with it there are lots of expenses to cover, including the cost of fireworks themselves, barges, insurances, and other operational expenses. Little background. Prior to 2011, there was a mechanism in place to provide fireworks funding from municipalities a portion on a per capita basis. In 2011 itself, this mechanism was no longer in place, so to keep this wonderful tradition alive, a small group of local citizens formed the Traverse City Boom Boom Club to develop a grassroots initiative. It was designed to really include more community participation. While there has been continued financial assistance from several municipalities, including Grand Traverse County, funding is predominantly provided by local citizens and some local businesses that feel that this special national holiday should be celebrated in a traditional way in our all-American city. The county itself has supported our efforts in each of the last 3 years, and over that time, Traverse City Boom Boom Club has been able to slowly improve the quality of the actual fireworks production, and we fortunately had a little bit left over to start up each following year. We cannot thank you, the county, enough for your generosity and support for these endeavors. Although we are doing better, we respectfully request that Grand Traverse County continue supporting our efforts for our community. Nothing brings us all together more than patriotism and our national pride. Your support will help solidify our ability to bring joy, happiness, and that great pride to thousands of our fellow citizens. Thank you for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else for public comment? Okay, then I'm closing public comment, and we're going on to the approval of agenda. Anybody, do you have a motion, maybe?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Support.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then it passes. Now we go on to the consent calendar. Bonnie, it's your turn again.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Drain Commissioner's Annual Report. B, approval. Number 1, Office Supply Contract Renewal. Number 2, acceptance of remonumentation grant. Number 3, approval of remonumentation contracts.
Okay, is there any item that anyone in the audience would like removed from the consent calendar? Okay, we'll go to the commissioners, yes.
B3, please.
B3. Okay, that's approval of remuneration contracts. Where do you want me to put that, Chris?
Items removed from the consent calendar.
Pardon?
Items removed from the consent
Oh,
calendar.
yeah, that was. Okay, B3, let me find that. Items removed from consent calendar. Oh, there it is, yeah, B3. Okay, good, thank you. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item B3 that was removed.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, all those in favor, say
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, it passes. Let's see, now we go to item B3, right?
Yes,
Okay, let's do that.
I don't wish to consent,
Okay,
so if someone else wants to make the motion, I'm
Mr.
sure it'll
Chairman.
pass.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the remonumentation contracts.
is there a second?
Support.
Okay, discussion.
I also will not be supporting the contract.
Okay. Is that it for discussion? Okay. Let's do a roll call.
Crawford,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Kropa,
No.
Max Bauer,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lathrop.
No.
Motion passed.
Okay. And then the next thing, department action items, and this would be collaboration between, it has to do with Duck Lake Special Assessment, collaboration between Chris Forsyth and Drain Commissioner Kevin McEllier. We'll lead with Assistant Prosecutor Chris Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to basically provide you with the legal background on the resolution that's in your packet that I drafted, and then the Drain Commissioner can give you more of the technical background on the preliminary study that is being prepared and give you a little history. I'm also going to give you a little history as well. What the Drain Commissioner is asking to do with the assistance of my office is to look at Duck Lake and reaffirm the lake level, but also expand the special assessment district. And this is done through the Inland Lakes part of the Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act, NREPA. From a historical background, and again, the Drain Commissioner can give you a little more detail on this. Back in the late 50s, early 60s, there was a petition filed with then the Board of Supervisors by a group of neighbors asking that the lake level be established. And to do that, that's a multiple-step process. One of the steps, which will probably come back to you in a month and ask your permission to do, is file a petition in the circuit court asking one of our judges to establish the lake level and then allow the special assessment district to be created. That was done in the late 50s, early 60s. A SAD was established for Duck Lake. The lake level was set. That was 50 years ago, and I believe the SAD was being overseen by the Drain Commissioner for a number of years, but then that stopped. And in fact, up until really 2 years ago, former Commissioner Dick Thomas was physically out there at the existing dam there, raising and lowering the lake levels. So what the Drain Commissioner would like to do is, again, reestablish that lake level, expand the special assessment district so that everybody who benefits from that lake would join in and share the costs of maintaining the existing dam. It's not to put in a new dam, it's not to do any great construction, but there nonetheless is a cost in maintaining that dam. So that brings us, well, why are we here today? Under the inland lake levels part, step one is to go to the Board of Commissioners and ask that a preliminary study be done by a professional engineer that, in essence, talks about the feasibility of the project, and really to say, hey, we reviewed it, this is what's involved, this is what we think is going to cost. So that's why that resolution is there. Mr. McElligott has also given you a resolution dealing with funding. So with that, that's kind of the legal background, and I'm going to turn it over to the Drain Commissioner, and he can take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Kevin McElligott, your County Drain Commissioner. Thanks, Mr. Forsyth. That was a great background. I think you touched all bases, historically, where we're at, why we're here. In essence, the county owns the dam, and there's no special assessment district, so any maintenance costs relative to the dam or the mandated 3-year inspection costs, you're required every 3 years to inspect the dam, those costs are borne by all the county taxpayers without an assessment district. So what we're trying to do here is change that so that the financial responsibility is on the people who are benefiting from that controlled lake level rather than all the county taxpayers. And I would just then follow up. Mr. Forsyth had prepared for you this resolution that allows us to take the first step, and it's attached with a proposal from an engineering firm to provide the preliminary study, which ranges from $7,000 to $9,000. That preliminary study will come out of the revolving drain fund, which currently has $10,000 in it. When we're successful with completing this assessment process, then those assessments will come back and replenish that $10,000 fund that's paying for this preliminary study. So that's the mechanism we need. It's an orphan dam. It's owned by the county. It needs to be owned by the citizens that are benefiting from it.
And if I could just add one thing, just looking at the historical documents, there was a special assessment district established April 28th, 1960. That was only in place for 2 years. So again, that's kind of why we're coming back to you today in 2015 asking to move forward with this.
Okay, is there any questions from any of the commissioners about this? Yes, Sonny.
Yeah, and I think the key part about this is there was a special assessment district created to construct this dam back in 1959, 1960, something like this. 61, 62, I think it was actually finished. But when that special assessment district was done, one of the problems that we found when we started looking at it, years later, was the fact Duck Lake Peninsula was developed but none of the people in the center portion of the if my memory's right, Kevin, you can correct me, if none of the people in the center portion of Duck Lake Peninsula were assessed, only those people that had water frontage, even though they truly benefited by having the dam. So, and Chris is right, Dick Thomas has manually moved those boards up and down for 45 years. And he's been taking care of that. But the fact is, we need to have a provision in place whereas that we can guarantee the proper monitoring of this dam and have some sort of a insurance policy, if you will, if there were just some reason something would happen. It's always possible somebody runs a car off the ditch going across the Narrows and damages this dam.
So is
And
that a motion?
we have no motion. We were doing the discussion piece, I guess, so even though we should have the motion first. Mr. Chairman, I would move forward with the special assessment district for the Duck Lake Dam.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay?
And I'm sorry if I just interrupt real quick, just to, for Bonnie's benefit, what I'd ask is the motion to adopt the resolution as prepared by Deputy Civil Counsel.
Okay? You can write that fast, right,
And
Bob?
it's also
She
for
can write
immediate,
faster than I can talk.
also for immediate effect.
Yes.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes.
What's the annual cost right now for this? I know you said Dick Thomas was doing it
He's
probably
been doing it for
nothing?
45 years, yeah, for nothing.
What's the estimate on what it's going to cost the county?
Right now, for my 10 years, over 10 years as drain commissioner, every 3 years I provide a dam inspection, and I've got that whittled down to $400 every 3 years. So at the minimum, it'll be $400 every 3 years. This proposal in your packet will have a thorough study. I see a need for some maintenance. There should be some boulders, some armoring, there's some erosion occurring, so a little bit of maintenance. I don't think it's going to be over $1,000. So the prosecutor's office was very generous to do the legal proceedings on this and to keep our costs down, and then we'll recoup those assessments. Right now, there's roughly 642 properties on the lake. About half of that are frontage, and half of those are shared. And so then those costs would be divvied up roughly $29 per frontage property, and then perhaps $4 on a shared parcel. Just kind of a ballpark cost until the splits of the properties kind of change later. But your question is, what are the actual costs? Right now, it's only been $400 every 3 years.
And currently, and for you have been personally doing the moving the boards and managing the dam.
The last 2 years, Commissioner Thomas had an agreement because he was putting the boards in and I was taking them out, and it was inefficient. And yeah, the last couple of years, as everyone knows, the water levels have been very high, and almost every weekend I've got to get out there to make sure there's no ice shanties that were left over on the ice into the dam, or log jams, et cetera. It's high maintenance.
Okay, any more discussion? Yes.
Just so I understand what I'm approving here, the Special Assessment District was established in 1960. So that's a taxing jurisdiction that allows us to tax people in that district for things that have to do with the dam. And all we're doing here is looking to reestablish a water level and to perhaps extend the existing Special Assessment District?
Right,
Okay.
the next step is, hopefully in a month by now, the engineer will have a study done. We come back, we provide you with the second resolution authorizing the prosecuting attorney to file petition in circuit court. Both Mr. McElligott and I have been in discussion with Attorney Scott Howard, who's kind of an expert in this area. Part of that resolution would be to retain Scott's services as well, although the way things work right now, I'll be doing the lion's share of the work. Scott Howard's just there to make sure I'm dotting my I's, crossing my T's. But yeah, this is just step one of the process, and there's going to be several steps along the way.
And so the process is charged to the county general fund? It's not part of the dollar amount that goes into taxing in the Special Assessment District?
No, the current cost to create the special assessment
Right, like
district.
Scott Howard's legal fees and
Well,
that sort of thing?
That will come from the revolving drain fund
That will
and
come
be
from the-
replenished as a result of assessments.
Okay.
Commissioner Cropper, you bring up a good point. Back when the dam was created, an assessment district was created just to pay for the cost of the dam. But at that time, I think because the laws were different, they didn't have to create an assessment district in perpetuity to
For
take care.
maintenance.
Yeah, for these mandated lake level.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to
And so,
absorb.
yes, and there was a discussion, the previous drain commissioner was going to do that, never got around to it. And so it's a housekeeping issue.
Okay.
We're finally, and the prosecutor's office was generous to do the legal work. So that'll keep the cost down and we'll get this buttoned up.
So the process is different than all of these new special assessment districts that we're creating.
Good point.
Is there a public hearing process for this, for the new citizens that will be brought into an expanded special assessment?
Yeah, there'll be two types of notice. There'll be notice of the court action and give them an opportunity to come into court
Okay.
and raise any concerns. And then later down the road, the drain commissioner will hold a public hearing for the purpose of establishing the district itself.
Okay.
And they'll get notice of that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Everyone must be represented, have their say if
So
there's going
this
to be.
does have a public hearing process, just like the regular special assessment?
Yes, the statute is different. This is a Lake Level Act versus the drain code or the other
Okay.
drains. But you're right, they all have public
I'm
hearings.
starting to get it. And the last question is, did we buy this dam for $1?
Bridge over.
Thank you for all your answers. I'm
19
starting to
road.
grasp drains now.
Curious.
I've personally inspected that dam probably 10 times, and you gotta go visit it. It's a beautiful little dam. It's a beautiful spot in our county. So any more comments? We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And that was for immediate effect, you said?
Immediate effect,
Okay.
yeah. All right, then next is Drain Commissioner Kevin McElligott on an item related to this. Go ahead.
Great, Commissioners. I brought these are kind of tie-barred together with Chris's help on the last item. The next item, as I mentioned, the last item will be funded from the revolving drain fund. There's roughly less than 10K in there. This Duck Lake Dam issue will deplete that fund. Now, and as you know, I'm creating new drains in collaboration with the Road Commission. The next item then similarly creates a funding mechanism so that we can do preliminary studies to start these new drains off, to start the process. And so what you see before you tonight is a resolution. The law allows, if you approve this resolution, that I can require seed money from the people that want these new drains, be it a drain or a Lake Level Act, any kind of a drain district. Now that the revolving drain fund will be depleted, and rather than tying up general fund dollars with, say, $30,000 in the revolving drain fund, the law allows you, if you approve this resolution, that I can require a small deposit to do the preliminary studies for any new drain or lake level districts. And then if we're successful, that money, just like the Duck Lake Dam, will then be assessed and returned back to the depositor of those funds.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
Questions. What is the expiration on this? Can you continually create or ask for seed money, or is it just for this group of drain districts that you're doing right now?
Good question. No, this was designed for in perpetuity. As I mentioned, the only other option would be to tie up general fund dollars and come before you. Most drain commissioners have, on average, $30,000 in the revolving drain fund. I know you don't have that loose change sitting around. So to answer your question, this would be in perpetuity rather than me coming before the board every time we have a project and needing 2,000 here, 2,000 there. As you know, there's currently 5 new drain projects, and I'm collaborating with the Road Commission. They've offered the seed money to begin on this, but we got lucky with that one. We didn't have a resolution, and they offered it. But going forward, say a neighborhood wants to create a drain district, and we don't have the funds, they would then front that money.
This is only in the event that the revolving drain loan is empty, or it exceeds the dollar amount that you have in the revolving drain loan?
Either. Good question. Ideally, if the citizens really want their drain, they should put the seed money in, just like the Road Commission has on these projects. But maybe if there's hardships and there is money in the revolving drain fund, then on a case-by-case basis, we should make that decision based on risk, whether or not we'll get that refunded.
So you won't be asking for seed money from any of the citizens in this current list of drained, because the road commission fronted that? Okay.
That's correct,
I
right.
just wanted to make sure we had noticed to anyone that was listening that could potentially be asked to upfront some money and doesn't have the opportunity to speak out or ask questions.
Good question. No, this is just proactive. We were lucky with what we're doing so far, but moving ahead, we want to have this option.
I want to make it clear to the public and to the board, the revolving drain fund comes from county taxpayers at large. What he wants to do is, and he's new from here on with this resolution, is not burden all the citizens, just make the people that are receiving benefit put the upfront money. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion? Do we have a motion? Yes.
Just another piece of discussion, although we probably should have motion before we have discussion, but since we're already doing it backwards. My question has to do with the fact if you take seed money or you request seed money from someone and then the drainage district does not go forward, does that individual or group of individuals have their monies refunded?
Good question, and that's written right in your resolution. If there's, just trying to recall from memory, and it says right in the resolution,
It says the above cost shall be
let
returned.
me just summarize it, that say the seed money was $5,000 and only $2,500 was spent to produce preliminary work, mailings, et cetera. The depositor would then receive the balance, the other $2,500, if it's unsuccessful. And if the project is unsuccessful, they would get their full $5,000 deposit back because it would be a portion amongst all those who benefit. So just as Chairman Lathrop has mentioned, both of these are a way to take the burden off all taxpayers and focus it on those that are receiving the benefit.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
In the new drainage districts that you're looking at, I did hear earlier that all those people will be notified and it'll be a public hearing and they'll have their say and they'll know that they're going to be assessed for that?
Absolutely. I have at least 30 calls daily. They've all been notified, and with all these happening at once, and we did them all at once because it's more efficient for the consultants to handle them all at once rather than billing me for each one and to keep the cost down. So to answer your question, they've already received all their notices. I'm getting, 40, responding to 40 of the calls, 50 calls a day in the various district. They've received notice, the clerks received notice, they were published in the paper, they're published on my website. This is just the first step. We're kind of digressing from the agenda items, but I want to answer your question. Right now, we're not creating the drain yet. The drain code requires that kind of a jury will hear the evidence and decide whether or not these drains are necessary and conducive to public health. The Road Commission petitioned my office, and by law, I must assist them and follow through in the petition process. And so as I was mentioning, the first step is the jury will decide thumbs up, thumbs down, we need this drain. And if we get a green light, then we proceed to engineer the solution to find the drainage district and get those costs. And then there's another public hearing and mailed notices at that time. So that's been a common question. Anytime your elected officials are asking you to, spend money or be assessed, you have a public hearing and have a right to voice your opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the attached resolution to allow the requirement of a cash deposit to cover preliminary costs to establish a new county drain or the maintenance and improvement of an existing county drain.
Is there a
Support.
second? Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And that is not immediate effect, right? That's
It does not
recommended.
indicate so on here.
Okay.
Usual and customary.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. And special thank you to you, Chris, for saving us so much money in this issue.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we're at item B, which is central dispatch.
Good evening, Jason Torrey, Deputy Director for 911 Central Dispatch. I've submitted to you an agenda item pertaining to a couple letters to our legislature regarding the Michigan Public Safety Communication System and the associated subscriber fees that go along with that. Your Board of Directors for the 911 Central Dispatch and the Technical Advisory Board are working towards coming up with options towards viable communications going down the road. One of the hindrances of the MPSCS along the way has always been the associated subscriber fees, which are $200 per radio. So in essence, that'd be $400 per man with a mobile and a portable. There's active talk about eliminating or reducing those fees altogether, and we think it's a good opportunity to reach out and make sure that our voice is heard about what we think about those fees.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to authorize the distribution of the letters regarding the communications subscriber fees. I would also ask that we put this item on the agenda for our meeting next week with Senator Schmidt, or 2 weeks, Senator Schmidt and Representative Inman.
Good thinking. Is there a second to that? Okay, Dr. Johnson, discussion.
Well, I asked Jason to put this on the agenda. I serve on the Board of Directors for Central Dispatch, and I thought that the letters were great. Looking forward at some of our ideas for communications, the elimination or at least lowering this fee would be critical in saving the money that the different entities need to help us move forward with looking at radio systems. So what I had hoped our Board of Commissioners would do is consider the idea of passing a resolution that we could attach along with these letters to say that Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners supports moving forward with looking at either eliminating or reducing the MPSCS fees. So I was hoping to see something like that as well.
You want to make a motion?
Well, we have a motion on the floor, and it's a good motion. I just
Okay.
wanted to say that we
That's right, we have a motion, we have a second. Okay, more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to finance.
Did you
I
want to
would
make
like
another
to-
mission?
Oh, you want?
Yes, and not knowing the appropriate process for creating a resolution, do we need to have one presented to us next week in writing and then we approve that? Do we make a motion to ask to have a resolution created, or what's the best path here?
I think Chris Kramer will put something together with Jason's assistance and bring it to you at the next meeting.
Okay, so we don't
probably,
need to have a motion then?
With the usual distribution to the governor, the representative and senator, and the Michigan Association of Counties.
Okay, we don't need a motion though, do we?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Well, thank you for this board for
We
considering it.
can have it
It's
as
important.
an enclosure in the letters that we've already approved.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on then to starring Dean.
Starring Dean.
Oh, well,
25 years, really?
yeah,
It's
that's
hard to stay
amazing.
famous that long.
The first item is the general fund trial balance through the end of March, and I'll just hit a couple of the highlights on page 47, which is the revenue comparison to a year ago. The other financing sources reduction is our indirect costs are lower because of the net asset distributions that we're receiving relative to our insurance cost that's in the general fund. And then the transfer in amount, you'll note the $1.1 million reduction or difference compared to last year. That's because we have fully exhausted our revenue sharing reserve fund. We're back online now with the state revenue sharing payments. So that is a budgeted difference. We're not $1 million shy of revenue. It's that transfer in is budgeted lower because of how the funds are working.
Going up.
On the expenditure side, the big difference or variance is I invoiced for the indirect costs sooner in 2015 than I did last year. Those costs are hitting, the judicial category. And then when you look at public safety, you see that reduction of $213,000. That's from setting up the 911 as a separate special revenue fund. So the 911 central dispatch cost is no longer in your general fund budget. And then we've got some, with the substance abuse payment, that was really all adjusted when we posted the audit adjustments for 2013, but at this point in time, I had not posted the 2013 audit adjustments, so it's showing up as a, $123,000 variance. But everything is in line with what we budgeted, and I don't have any major concerns with revenues or expenditures at this time.
2014 audit adjustments, not 2013, all right?
No, we're currently in the process of doing the audit, and I had a difference of opinion with the auditors as to how I should account for the fourth quarter, the convention facility payment. I won the argument in 2012. The number was larger in 2013. They won that argument. So the money is properly accounted for. We don't always agree with the auditors, but they have the final say. So that's good. It's good to have somebody else review your work, and they're in doing that right now. So.
Okay, do we need a motion?
No, it's just information.
Information, okay. Now, does that include, have you included all three of your issues, or item one, general fund, then budget adjustments, you talked about that?
Budget adjustments, there are a number of budget adjustments that are presented here. I'll go through them briefly. The first one, with the reduction in indirect costs, revenues in the general fund, that means I'm also billing lower indirect costs to the department. So you can see this reduction for the Commission on Aging. They're able to reduce their use of fund balance because of the lower invoice for indirect costs. Community corrections, that's a $100,000 increase. It's all supported by their tether fees that they're actually realizing, but we do have higher costs on, the equipment that we're using to monitor. So this is completely covered by those additional revenues that they're bringing in. But we did not see the increase in this revenue until probably October and November of last year. So when we put the budget together for 2015, we did not take this into consideration. But that's why this amendment is coming back to you now. And then there is, I don't know what page it's on, but on page 51, there's another Commission on Aging adjustment. They're basically budgeting funds that were expected to be used in 2014 that were not used, and they're carried over to the 2015 budget, which is a use of fund balance, and the expenditures are identified. Small adjustment for an insurance recovery that we received to cover the cost of the vehicle that was repaired. And then the last one is for the Hope Road facility. We had some frozen water lines there that caused some extensive damage, but we're also replacing the roof, and this is the budget adjustment to cover those costs. Those costs are fully funded by the townships that are in our sewer and water system. So I would ask for your approval of those budget adjustments.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the budget adjustments.
Okay, there's answers. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Now, item number 3.
The next item will take a little more time to discuss and to present, and I do have from Acme Township trustee Gordy LaPointe, who will help me explain the request. But we've been working with the township for, a little over a year to issue bonds that will fund 2.7 miles of road improvements in the township. The Road Commission is also involved in this because they're actually going to be Michigan Transportation Fund bonds that are issued under Public Act 51. The township has approved their resolution to move this project forward. I've attached that or included that in the packet. It's quite a lengthy resolution, but there is a summary of the project cost. This is on page 56, if you're following. And with that, I guess just one thing I will point out before I turn it over to Gordy to explain what work they've done to get this to this point, is that the township is putting in $100,000 to fund the project, and the road commission is putting in $250,000, which those contributions of funds will ultimately lower the amount of money that we'll need to borrow here. So, Gordy, I'm just hitting the highlights, so I will hand it off to you, and if they have questions, we'll try to answer them.
There's nothing but highlights. As Dean said, it's a project that's been underway for Gordy LaPointe, trustee in Acme Township. Jake couldn't make it this evening. It's been a project we've probably been working on for over 2 years now, and listening to the discussion about the special assessment district for Duck Lake, and the comment was it's going to cost everybody a couple $12 or something. Just to give you the magnitude of this, yes, the township is putting in $100,000. The road commission is putting in $250,000, and we've been working on them for probably a year and a half to get that commitment. And each resident, if they choose to pay up front, it's going to cost them about $5,500 per property to do this construction project. And if they choose, those that opt to finance it over a 15-year term, it's going to be about $450 per year for 15 years. So that's about $6,700 or something to that effect. So it's a significant collaboration between the township kicking in $100,000, the road commission $250,000, and of course the residents. And it was sold to the road commission as leverage. I mean, they're going to get a $1 million project plus, or $1.3 million project done for a $250,000 contribution. And one of the questions that came up amongst the folks early on when the millage was approved by the county for the road improvement, you know, we started this thing, a lot of people were saying, well, wait a minute, now that we've approved this millage, do we have to continue the special assessment district? Well, just something that I found interesting is the millage is going to raise $3.5 million per year for the county. This project is going to cost $1.3 million. So we had to convince them there's no way they're going to take a third of their entire budget to fix 2.7 miles of road, and there's 800 miles of road in the county. So we went through that process, and everybody's pretty much on board on this. Like I say, it was a long process, probably about 4 months of resolutions that were passed, and the community really wants this project. We didn't do a petition, we did it a little bit of a novel way. We did a survey to all 97 property owners. And we set a bar and said if 75% of those responding are in favor, the township would go ahead and pass the resolution to create the special assessment district. Certainly anybody who wanted to petition to stop it with the 20% required by law could do it, but nobody proceeded to attempt to stop it. People were concerned about the amount of money it was going to cost them, but at the end of the day, they realized it was the only way it was going to get done. So a lot of work's gone into this. We've worked with the road commission very closely. We've worked with their engineers. We'll probably be letting the bid spec out by the end of this month. And we'll get the bids back from the various bidders and hope to get this project done in a July-August time frame. So a lot of work's gone into this by a lot of people, and what we need from you folks is to assist us with the bonding. So we've made there's an agreement between the township and the road commission that we will pay them we'll service the debt through the collection of the special assessments. And in turn, since the county has a higher bond rating, Acme Township really doesn't. We went through that, and we're asking the county to, in essence, float the bond for this project.
If I could add, there will be agreements in place between the road commission and the township. The county, as Gordy has indicated, bonding through the county makes sense because of our bond rating. The gas tax revenue that the county road commission collects is ultimately the dollars that are the security for the, the bonds in the event that we didn't have, if we had an issue with the special assessment district, but that's not anticipated. But the act under which these bonds will be issued requires, well, obviously the township, I believe you have to amend your resolution somewhat, or is that the
There's
contract?
another, it's the 7th resolution. We'll pass a
Seventh resolution.
resolution next week, and then we'll have another one scheduled to do in May.
So the county road commission is scheduled to approve or act on, I don't want to assume, but we're hoping that they adopt their resolutions on April 23rd at their next meeting. And then we would come back to the county board for approval of the resolutions that you have to adopt to issue these bonds. And they are, the source of payments to cover the principal and interest payments that are due on the bonds will be the special assessment funds that are collected.
Okay, do we need to have a motion on this tonight, or is this just information?
No, at this point in time, we have briefly updated through Dave's administrator's report that this project was in the works, but right now, this is crunch time on this bond issue. We want to get out and, find out what it's going to cost when the bids come back in. So Gordy and the township have done all the work. I'm just sitting back, making sure that we don't miss any deadlines at this point, so.
And I will mention, the road commission's attorney has looked at the contract that we'll approve next week, and then we'll go ahead, so.
Any questions? Yes, Doctor.
How long are the bonds?
15 years.
Gordy, has the special assessment district been established and the role been established already?
Yes, we're through all of that. The rules have been established. We had the 2 public hearings. The special assessment district has been created. We're just at the point now of financing.
Other comments or questions?
The only costs incurred by the county are Dean's time, as far as for us servicing a bond?
Yes. Going forward, there are continuing disclosure requirements for the 15 years that the bonds are outstanding. We actually do that, though, on every bond issue that we have, and we don't have a lot of outstanding bond issues. That's a very minimal time. We do have, obviously, the auditors, we report on these bonds. These bonds will actually be reported on the road commission books, which are ultimately rolled up into the county audit. There is staff time associated with this, but it has been minimal to this point, so we're not, hopefully that answers your question. But yes, there are things that we have to do from time to time, relative to the bonds. And
The bonding cost is $40,000, which is rolled into the amount we'll bond for, so always participate in that cost.
Anything more? Okay, thank you, Gordy. And I guess we'll move on then to administration.
Fireworks funding. We've had a request from the Boom Boom Club and the Fife Lake to support their fireworks displays on July 4th. I gotta find that page.
Page 59.
And this funding was not included in the 2015 budget, but the request came in nonetheless. We forwarded them to the board for consideration. Obviously, they could be these funds could be taken from contingency, or we could find other funding if that was the board's desire.
Okay, let's do it this way. I think I want to do it right. Could we have a motion and a second, then a discussion? Is that the way we should do it, rather than discussing first? Someone give me a motion.
I would move that we would continue funding for the Boom Boom Club for the fireworks displays.
Is there a second?
Do you want to include Fife Lake?
Yeah, yes, and Fife Lake as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, second, okay, now let's have discussion.
I think you're right, Carol.
Yes.
It actually does say in the memo here, the 2015 recommended budget provided for funding for $2,000 for Traverse City and $500 for Fife Lake.
The requested budget, but it was not in the recommended.
Right. It was requested, it was not recommended.
Okay.
So it was requested, but it was denied.
Not funded.
It was not funded. Oh, okay.
So, I mean, there was some controversy among board members at the time, and that's the way it sat. We knew that the request would come in eventually, and then the board could decide whether they want to take the money out of contingency or not.
Doctor?
Okay.
When's the last time the county gave any money, I guess, to these programs?
We've been doing it every year.
Okay.
This funding was not included in the adopted budget, if you will.
Right.
Okay.
It was not in the final recommendation budget. It was in all of the discussion through the whole budget process. It's just when push come to shove at the end of the thing, and we had to figure out somewhere to cut money. This was one of those that was felt to be non-essential service maybe, so it wasn't included, knowing that we would probably be back to have discussion with the new commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, non-essential, I think, but, you know, this, when you look at what this brings to the county for this little bit of money, you know, I think it's something that's pretty valuable. I know I always enjoy going to the fireworks. I can't stay up that late anymore, but.
More discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Now, next is government finance, GFOA proposal contract.
Yes, received the proposal from GFOA that we requested a few meetings ago, and it came in. You can see the deliverables that they've outlined. They're not specific, they're not extremely specific, but they do outline the process that they're going to give us results budgeting training. They're going to be defining the process, defining the roles of the stakeholders, identifying milestones, and then staffing and cost estimates. And that all for, they're offering that for a price of $8,000. And it's inclusive of all travel costs incurred by GFOA staff.
Okay, let's start with a motion, and then, yes.
I would move to approve the contract with the Government Finance Officers Association as presented.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, now discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now, the other thing is POAM tentative agreement.
What's on our desk?
Yes, as you know, we still have one contract outstanding, and that is with the Police Officers Association of Michigan Deputies Unit in the Sheriff's Department. We've come to it, we had a tentative agreement that was reached, then it was rejected by the union. We met again, came up with a different agreement that we discussed a few meetings back in closed session. They've approved that about a week ago through their process, and it's coming to you for final ratification. As you see on the summary agenda item, health insurance changes, which are fairly significant, that they've agreed to. Their personal days, instead of being paid out for 64 hours, they'll be paid out for 40 hours. Shift premium will increase to 50 cents and 75 cents for the afternoons and 75 cents for midnights. There will be a long-term disability program for the employees that are on the DC retirement plan. They'll get a boot allowance of $100 a year per deputy, vehicle maintenance of $30 per pay period per assigned vehicle, and payment in lieu of insurance of $2,000, which is prorated for part-time employees, and that's pretty much identical to every other county employee. It's a 3-year contract with 1.5% wage increases in the first 2 years, and then tied to the Consumer Price Index in the 3rd year. And we recommend its approval.
Okay, can we have a motion? Yes.
I'll make a motion that the board authorize and direct the chairwoman of the board and the county administrator to approve and endorse the collective bargaining agreement with the POAM deputies as recommended by the county administrator. This recommendation shall be effective immediately.
Is there a second?
Support.
Now I have a
Okay,
question.
Who was support?
Sunny.
Sonny. Okay, now, yes, Sonny.
A couple questions. One, this pretty much mirrors the agreement with the other Sheriff's Department units, except it does not have the physical maintenance piece in it, correct?
That's correct. It has the vehicle maintenance rather than the physical maintenance.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the logic behind one instead of the other, but that's okay. Yeah, the only other question that I had had to do with, no, it had to do with the physical maintenance piece, so
Yeah.
we left that out.
Hey, thank you, Sonny. Anybody else? Yes.
The retroactive part of the salary schedule
Yes.
is, so that's a little over 4 months of salary raises. They will just automatically receive that all at one time?
Whatever the, yeah.
The differences.
The
And that's
payroll
not an
clerk will
issue for the
calculate the, you know, what, as of the date that it takes effect, we're going to calculate what they've earned, if they would have been paid the higher rate for that time period, and issue a single check to all
Issue
the
a-
bargaining unit members.
Okay. And our budget is probably
budgeted.
been planned for this, right? And then retroactive as well on the shift, the guys that are working the night shifts and that sort of thing. It all just comes at once?
Right.
Okay.
Any
And
other-
then, I'm sorry, just one last thing, the health insurance, I know that you had discussed that previously, that they were, throughout the year, on a higher costing health insurance for the county. That part is not retroactive, obviously.
Obviously not.
So,
We have to pay up until, this will be up until the May 1st, you know, you pay a month in advance.
Right.
The month prior, you make your payment in this case, late April. It will be at the new rate for next month. So we'll have paid 4 months at the high rate, and then going forward at the lower rate.
so if we're using costs for the CPO contract, we're dealing with two different healthcare costs for our deputies throughout the year, but the pay would be the same because it's retroactive.
Okay. Comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Now we go to unfinished business, and it's per diem policy update recommendation. Who's going to lead with that?
Oh, I think that was my board. Go. But I think Chris Forsythe should lead. Can I just check something really quick here? Okay, the ad hoc is on the agenda. I didn't need to do both ad hocs at the same time. Chris, I think, can take this over.
Yeah, we did meet March 26th. Commissioner Max Bauer, Commissioner Kropa, Dean, myself, and Chris Kramer. We reviewed the per diem policy and some of the concerns voiced by the commissioners. And at the end of the day, what was, I think, ultimately reviewed and agreed upon was removing the cap on the number of meetings. I think the cap was set at 3 meetings a day, and you get compensation for only those 3 meetings, and that's it.
2.5.
2.5.
2.5. It's $90, yeah.
Yeah, and I know some of you, and probably really all of you, go to a lot more meetings than that, so that really didn't make sense. And I provided my memo, and really it was a question by Commissioner Kropa of, you know, well, is there any state laws out there that would prohibit per diem compensation? I know that the Brownfield Authority was brought to her attention a while back. So I just reviewed the state statutes, and the language I was looking for is right in my memo, shall serve without compensation. Let me say, however, the 3 boards that I've identified, they all say serve without compensation, but there are allowances for expenses. So there is that component of it. So in a nutshell, that's the change. That the memo just spells out the 3 boards where you serve without compensation. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, do we need a motion first and then Okay, let's do that. Commissioner?
I would move to accept the recommendation regarding the per diem policy made by the ad hoc committee.
Is there a second?
Support.
Doctor? Okay, discussion.
I have a question.
Yes.
And a comment. The question is, what date would it be effective? Is it effective today? Is it effective yesterday, April 1st? What, just so we know what we're doing.
It would be moving forward.
Okay.
So it could be made effective immediately, or it could be made effective at the regular board meeting.
Okay. And my comment is that I think it's a good idea to remove the cap. A few of us are employed full-time in other jobs, and I don't know about the others, but what I do is I do my schedule so that I actually have a lot of meetings in a day, so that I don't have to take bits and pieces of other days off of work. So I've arranged my schedule so that, say, on any given Tuesday when I don't work, I might do that. And it seems like with a cap, I'm being penalized for doing that. But I've had to take, the time off of work to do that. So I think that it's a bit more fair for those of us that are in a time management issue that way.
Okay, any more discussion?
I did want to
My
ask.
recommendation would be that this be just on the agenda, passed by this committee and effective May 1st, that the new rules would apply. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so do we have to do a friendly amendment?
No.
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 All right.
Because if the committee passes it, the policy won't become effective unless we move for immediate approval. It won't become effective until the board meeting, which is the last Wednesday of the month, and that'll be most of our last meetings for this month anyway.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Okay. Oh, this is going to be a good one.
Don't give it away
Looking
now.
forward to this one, yeah. I think it's you, Chris, isn't it?
Is it me again?
He's the star today.
Well, we could let Captain Hall have his opinion first.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has an opinion.
I can't imagine.
I'm sure he has an opinion.
No, I prepared this memo for you based on the question that was asked at last month's meeting. That question relates to Dr. Conlon's invoice. One thing off the bat I want to say, I apologize to both Dean and Bob Hall, is that the confusion I cite to you in my memo has been cleared up. It is in fact an invoice for 2014. So just get that out of the way. But moving forward, what I've done for you really is I talked to Bob. Bob reviewed this exact same issue 3 years ago. He prepared a detailed memo for you then, or for the board then. I reviewed that. The law is still good today. And Bob spells it out for everybody on how it should work, which really at the end of the day, Northern Lake Community Health, in their agreement and enabling resolution, they say they're going to provide mental health services to our county inmates free of cost. But as soon as you go outside of CMH and you use somebody like a Dr. Conlon, well, now they're not providing the service, and it's the county's responsibility. And what the Attorney General said in an opinion about 6 years ago is, yes, ultimately it's the county's responsibility. So the 2014 invoice, yes, that is the county's responsibility. The bigger issue, though, is, and Captain Hall can explain,
Dr. Hall?
he can explain Dr. Conlon's situation, as well as give you some more background is his relationship with CMH, is what do we do moving forward, especially next year when Dr. Conlon moves out of the area.
Okay, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Captain Bob Hall. I'm the jail administrator. Give you a little history on Dr. Conlon, how we got involved in this. Community Mental Health, Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, when they formed their enabling agreement back in October of 2003, the language, as Mr. Forsythe indicated, is in there, and we thought it was pretty clear that Northern Lakes was going to supply mental health services to the inmates in all 6 counties that are represented under Northern Lakes Community Mental Health at no charge. The disagreement came about when they were put to task as to exactly what does the services mean. And it became clear that their interpretation of the services meant they will come in and see their clients. The inmates that are their clients before they enter the jail, they will come in and deal with them. Anybody else, they're not going to touch. Well, most of the inmates that I have in the jail are not current CMH clients, but they do present mental health issues. Anywhere from 10 to 20% of my inmate population requires some sort of mental health intervention, and a lot of it is psychotropic medications. Northern Lakes Community Mental Health says we will not provide a psychiatrist, who is the only one that can prescribe these medications, and we will not pay for the cost of the medications. Well, we were caught between a rock and a hard place in trying to figure out how we're going to get these inmates the psychiatric services that they need. They were not deemed serious enough to be institutionalized, but they needed intervention, sometimes medically. Through the help of Ann Boss from Community Mental Health, she discovered Dr. Conlon, who indicated she would be available and willing to come in a couple hours every other week, assess the serious inmates that have serious mental health issues in our jail, prescribe the medications, and then do follow-ups the next time she comes in. But she wasn't interested in a contract because everybody was hoping that we would get this ironed out with Northern Lakes, but it's been going on since 2009 when we got Dr. Conlon on board. Dr. Conlon comes in, sends me a bill. I told her the first year we budgeted for this, we put in, and we talked to the board, we were going to put in $20,000 as a maximum ceiling to cover all of her services. And I told her, you go over that, you're not going to get paid. So she's been very good at staying under the $20,000. What happened in 2014 when we started doing our budgets, we had all of the departments came in, we did all the budget presentations, all of our department presentations. And Dr. Conlon's line item there for mental health services quickly became suspect as to why are we paying her when we have this enabling agreement. We went back to Northern Lakes again, went back to the well again, and they said, no, we're not going to touch anybody. And we will come in and see our clients, but we're not going to pay for the medications. You guys have to pay for the medications. That's what Mr. Cooney's response was. He believed that the way it was written is that they are responsible to see any inmate with mental health, not just their clients, it's not spelled out, and treatment services includes medications. They should be providing those also. Well, Northern Lakes didn't like that either. So throughout 2014, we grappled with that, and at a meeting with Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, then Executive Director Greg Paffhouse indicated, why don't you send us an invoice for Dr. Conlon? And instead of tweaking or messing with the county's appropriation of the $680-some thousand, I believe maybe we can just reimburse you the $25,000 or whatever it was for Dr. Conlon, or Dr. Conlon. So we did that. At the direction of the board, we submitted an invoice to Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, and they returned it and they rejected it. And that's where we're at today. Brief history.
Okay. What do we do from here? Go ahead.
So just, I had to read your opinion twice to make sure that I understood it. So I'm going to ask if my understanding is correct. So based on the agreement that we have with our mental health provider, they are responsible for providing the mental health services that we need for our jail inmates.
Yes.
And should we go outside of, go outside and contract for services, we should not expect our mental health provider to pay for those services.
Community mental health won't.
Okay.
They're not obligated for that.
Wanted to be sure I was correct, so that's the statement I told Captain Hall I would make.
Okay. Mr. Bennett?
Let me clear up something you said too, because it wasn't clear to me. So mental health is seeing their patients and their clients, a client that is a mental health client, gets booked into the jail, they're paying for their mental health issues. Are they paying for their medications as well?
No,
They're
no,
not paying for
no.
their own clients' medications.
Right, and what we have to, they're not coming into the jail to see them most of the time. Every now and then they do. Most of the time, we get notified of an appointment. We have to load the inmate into a car and take them over to the Northern Lakes office for their appointment. They will not see non-clients. To confuse this matter even more, Dr. Conlon's been a godsend. She filled in the spot that we needed to deal with these inmates. But she put us on notice that next October, she's moving to New Zealand. That's a
This
bit of,
October or next?
a year from this October.
Okay.
That's a bit of a commute. So whatever we come up with for a fix, we need to go beyond next. We can't include Dr. Conlon for a long-term fix. She will be unavailable.
Okay, go ahead, Sonny.
Obviously, I've had a number of these discussions about this issue with Greg Pathhouse and his predecessor and his successor along the way. But, you know, I believe, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the enabling documentation for community mental health says they will provide services in our jail. I think, Bob, when the enabling agreement was put in place, they were providing 40 hours a week in our jail?
Originally, we had 2 assessment people that would come in and make the assessments. And I think they were both almost 40 hours a week, so we almost had 80.
So we had almost 80 hours a week. And what is our current level of person in
One
our
assessment person about up to 4 hours a day, so 20 hours a week maybe.
Yeah. So, you know, when the enabling agreement was put in place that allows us to pay $683,000 or $82,000 a year to create community mental health, we were under the understanding that we were going to get mental health services in our jail. We have on multiple occasions documented to them where we have notified them that we have possible patients, and many a times they were actually bona fide community mental health patients, but we would ask for an assessment. Well, that assessment couldn't be done today or tomorrow or 3, 4, or 5 days from now before they actually got around to do the assessment. And then half the time it was if corrections officers would transport that prisoner to the office and sit there and wait in the waiting room until they can be seen. You know, I firmly believe that community mental health services owes us community or mental health services within our jail. I don't believe that we should have to be transporting these people to their facility or anything else. The enabling agreement is very specific. They will provide mental health services as needed in our jail.
Commissioner.
I have a question for Mr. Forsythe. What would occur if we withheld payment? And when I say that, I'm looking at it from Commissioner Wheelock's perception, his vantage point. They are not, in my opinion, living up to the agreement.
Right.
If they are in breach of the agreement,
Right.
why should we continue to send them money as if they were not?
Yeah, I think the way to maybe address that is, should Grand Traverse County participate in Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, is there a way to do what you're requesting? Does the agreement provide for a mechanism to withdraw from the authority and say, well, fine, you know, we're gonna do our own thing? Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah,
Honestly,
page 107, sorry, gives you a mechanism. It says, any of the counties participating pursuant to this agreement may accomplish a termination by a resolution passed by a majority of the County Board of Commissioners with official notice from the County Board of Commissioners to the State Department of Community Health. The date of termination shall be 1 year following the receipt of such notification. Wow. So there's an out.
Yeah, there's your out.
You'd have to disband the whole thing, but
I mean,
We
I
are the
don't-
big,
I don't want to borrow trouble. I mean, I would rather work, well, any more trouble than I already have. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. But if they're not living up to the agreement, and clearly in my view and Commissioner Wheelock's view, they're not. And I'm perfectly willing to push the envelope.
Okay, Commissioner?
It's my understanding that the reason that we had to go and hire Dr. Conlon was because they already, at that point, were not fulfilling their obligations according to this agreement.
That's correct.
Because their obligations are to provide psychiatrists and medications, and because they said they won't, we had to go out and hire someone extra to do that. Well, did they give a reason why they won't prescribe medications or provide medications or?
They said that wasn't the intent of the language, the way it was written.
It's very specific.
Well, we thought so.
Then we should just get
Our
out.
The
position
intent
was,
is, right, it's.
we thought it was.
Yeah.
And they fell back on an Attorney General, Mike Cox was the Attorney General at the time. They fell back on his opinion that said it's the responsibility of the counties to cover all the costs for psychiatrists to come in. And our position was, well, we understand that. We're entered into agreement where we're paying $682,000 for
That's how we're
that
covering the
service to
cost.
come in.
Yeah.
And we're
They said-
not getting it.
Right, we're not getting what we've contracted for here.
Couple things I want to, so that we're not mischaracterizing. The $682,200 isn't just for jail services. That's to provide mental health services for the whole county.
Yes, it
People
is.
that are not in jail also. Northern Lakes Community Mental Health does an excellent job in several areas. No matter who the inmate is, if we detect in our intake screening or through our observation in the jail that an inmate is suffering some sort of a psychological or a mental issue, we call them, and we have 3 levels of call as far as emergent escalation. They are quick to respond, even after hours, in the middle of the night, in the winter, and on a Sunday night, they are right there. If the person is a CMH client, then the arrangements are made for us to transport to CMH for psychiatric intervention and medical or medication intervention, or they will come in. That's where the whole system breaks down. If the person is not a CMH client, they will say, this person needs to see a psychiatrist and get on medications. That's where we would turn around and go, okay, where's your psychiatrist? And they would say, it's not a client. Sorry, you got to find one. Now, if a person, so that's the gray area that we're having difficulty with. If a person is such that they need to be institutionalized, again, Northern Lakes Community Mental Health now shines in that area. They step forward, they help us with the intervention, getting a bed placed either at Munson's Center 1 or down at the the psychiatric hospital down in Kalamazoo or over at Ypsilanti at the State Forensic Center. They work feverishly to find a spot to put these people. They make it happen. We transport, or they will arrange transportation. That person goes down there. We never see an invoice for that. That's through state funds that they coordinate everything. So they're very good on that end. They're very good on the front end. It's the middle end of the inmates that stay in our jail that need mental health treatment. If they're not CMH clients, we have nowhere to go. We're stuck.
Doctor?
so if these individuals weren't in jail, they could go become clients of CMH?
Whatever their process is.
Yeah. So the only, I mean, that's kind of a general question to anybody if they know, but, so that's the only hindrance or the determining factor right now is the fact that they're in jail and not out in the general public.
Right.
Commissioner?
The medications, have they ever provided medications for their own patients since we've been in the agreement?
Not to my knowledge. Not
that was from the
unless the
beginning.
psychiatrist had, like Dr. Conlon sometimes, they get free samples from
Right.
their distributors. If they have those, they will provide them.
But
to
CMH
us.
has not.
I can't say for sure if they have or haven't. To my knowledge, they don't.
Have they ever provided rides to CMH, to Center One for their, so this has been from
We
the-
have to do the transporting.
So from the inception of this agreement, we, by our actions, at least acknowledged, by going out on our own and doing these things, that
We had to solve a problem, and Dr. Conlon was a temporary good answer for that, but she's leaving, so.
But since 2009, we have let them dictate the terms of a contract, and by our actions, we're saying it's okay, because we'll just go ahead and get our own person.
I wouldn't say it's as easy as we've let them. We've argued this on several occasions with them.
I'm gonna say every 3 months for
they're
the
not-
last 15 years.
But by the
we've been
fact that
arguing
we've
this.
hired someone and paid them, and by the fact that we've, I'm assuming, covered the prescription costs of both CMH and non-CMH clients.
This county has not held, in my opinion, Northern Lakes to the fire.
Okay,
Well,
I think I agree with you on that. My last question would just be, do you feel that because of the lack of response time or the help that you're getting, do you think that any of our county officers or fellow inmates have been put in any sort of danger or liability situation because of this?
Probably many times.
Okay, well, I think that probably answers the question then.
Okay, any more comments? Commissioner?
I would like to see a resolution drafted to withdraw from community mental health.
Is that a motion?
Yes. I just want to, I would like a resolution in a board packet that we can look at and discuss. I want to give our legal counsel time to take a look at, what the ramifications may or may not be. I'm certainly not prepared to pass any such resolution right now. But yes, that is a motion to ask that a resolution be drafted to withdraw from the authority.
Is there a second?
I'll support.
Okay, more, okay. Go ahead, Sonny, you, then
Well,
Commissioner.
the discussion that I have is Great Lakes Community Mental Health, CMH, whatever we're calling them this go-round, do provide a lot of mental health services in our community. And we can't ignore the good services that they do provide in lieu of strictly as an overriding factor of the fact that, without question, at least in my mind, they're not doing an adequate job in our jail. One of our problems is when we see the annual report from CMH, and I don't even remember what time of the year that is, but they'll come in and they'll tell us how many thousands of Grand Traverse County residents they serve. And it's a huge, huge number. But what they forget to tell us is the fact that everyone that receives services in a facility in Grand Traverse County, as far as they're concerned, is a county service, a service within this county. And that's why the numbers, or at least in my mind, are so skewed, is because of the fact that they have treatment facilities in this community, and therefore they deem that those are all services provided in Grand Traverse County. So this is what you're getting for your $682,000. I don't think, at least in my mind, there's never been, and I've probably been in at least 20 meetings, and Captain Hall's been in most of them, dealing with community mental health on a regular basis, and Boss did an excellent job for us for a long time. But the fact is, we are not receiving adequate mental health services in our jail. Our staff and our other prisoners are being put at risk on a daily basis because we are not getting the proper service. The enabling documents are very clear. Mental health is responsible to provide mental health services in our jail, and they are not fulfilling their obligation as far as I'm concerned.
Crawford?
I think that it might be preliminary to go with a full-fledged resolution saying we're going to pull the funding. I think that I serve on this board. I think that it would suffice to start a little bit lower than that. A resolution saying, we understand that you're not complying with the contract and we urge you to do so.
We've done that at least a dozen times.
Okay, okay. I just really hesitate to support a resolution saying that we're going to pull the funding because of this issue.
No,
I don't.
Actually, that's not what my
What is,
motion
can you
was.
clarify that
Yes,
for
my
me?
motion was to see a draft resolution
Okay,
as to what it would look like
okay.
and ask our legal counsel to take a look at the contract and see what the ramifications are regarding withdrawal.
Okay.
I'm not I'm not anywhere near
Okay.
the point of withdrawing from community mental health, but I think we need to take a serious look at it if we're not getting the services that we ought to be getting.
Councilman?
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd be more than happy to do that, and I support that concept. I will say, just sitting here thinking about it, when authority is created, no matter if it's community mental health or whatever authority, you're shifting liabilities to this authority. Now, would the county then have to reabsorb those liabilities, such as defined benefits for
Which is
their
why I
employees?
want you involved.
The other thing, just sitting here, I know 6 months ago, this board, together with the prosecutor, with our judges, with I believe maybe our sheriff, entered into this agreement that was established by state law dealing with community mental health and mental health programs. And so what effect would that have? But yeah, those are the questions I have off the top of my head. But we'd be more than happy to look into this and do the research.
Doctor?
And I'm trying to find it, but we only have two options, if I'm not mistaken. We either do a resolution like that, or we go to the legislature and get this changed. We have no other option to reduce funding, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the third option is you go to court and you ask the judge to say, you tell us who's reading this right. What are the obligations? I'm not saying we do that, but that's an option that should be thought about, is declaratory judgment is the mechanism.
Yeah, and clearly we have to do something between now and when Dr. Conlon leaves. We have to think ahead.
I think the key piece is the fact that, I'm not prepared to support withdrawing all funding from community mental health. I believe they provide too many services to our community. But I do believe there has to be a way to entice them, if you will.
Compel or something?
Yeah. that they need to fulfill their obligation to providing mental health services in our jail. I think they do a lot of good things in our community, but I think they terribly fail at providing the mental health services we need in our jail.
More discussion? We have a motion and a second.
I just want to, Chris, you recently looked at the AG opinion on this?
Right.
And did the AG said that they couldn't use state funds to pay for jail?
Right. But what
Jail
Mike,
inmates?
yeah, what Mike Cox in 2009 said, it's the county's, ultimately it's the county's responsibility.
Yeah, and what Greg Paffhouse has said to me is that we can't use state funds to do this. So, the $682,000 that we put in, we made an agreement with 6 counties. That was gonna be our contribution annually forever for the mental health authority. He's saying, we'll give you the services, but you've got to pay for them, because I can't use state dollars. So I have to use local dollars. And if I do it for Grand Traverse County, it means I'm shorting the contributions of the other units, or I have to provide services to all of them, and I can't afford to do that without more money.
Well,
So I think that's the kind of the conundrum that not only our mental health authority is in, but every mental health authority in the state and all the counties. I mean, this isn't a new issue. This has been around since I've been around. And, it's just taken different iterations. And before that AG opinion in 2008 or 2009, there was kind of a glimmer of hope that we were going to start to be able to get mental health funding, and then that just got blown out of the water by the AG opinion. So.
But I think Mike Cox's opinion, specifically, if my memory is correct, and I don't have it tonight, talks about the fact that they could not use state funding to provide mental health services in our jail. Use your state funding and provide mental health services on the street. Take the money that local units are contributing and provide services in the jail. All 6 counties are paying money to community mental health for services. The enabling documents say that they have to provide services in jail. I don't care. Pay the $20,000 or $30,000 out of the $680,000 we're sending you. I don't care what pot of money you take it out of. You are just responsible to provide the services in our jail.
Okay.
Maybe we have to go to court.
Yeah, but your motion I like, because it shoots a shot over their bow, and also helps us define
Well, I'm not,
one possible option.
I just want to take a look at
Yeah.
what our options and the ramifications are.
And I would think that when that resolution is drafted, and Chris will do a good job with it, I'm sure, one of the things that we cite in there in the whereas is the fact that community mental health has failed to fulfill their obligation to provide mental health services in our jail. That's the biggest whereas in this document that I see, is if they can figure out some way that they can meet our mental health needs in the jail, I'm certainly willing to continue to participate in community mental health. But they need to step up and meet this obligation. And we've sent dozens of letters over the years. We've had more meetings than I care to even think about, either in the jail, in here, at Craig's office, or one way or the other, specifically on this issue, the lack of mental health services in our jail. I've seen Bob tell us that sometimes he has up to 70 to 80% of his jail population have some mental health issues, whether it be depression or suicidal tendencies or whatever. But the number gets huge sometimes, and they're not doing anything to help us take care of that problem.
Well, and
It's Commissioner Krova's turn.
Oh, I wanted to know the other counties are not receiving these services in their jail?
I checked with the other 5 county jail administrators, and they share our pain.
So collectively, we
Collectively, we're not seeing, we're all seeing the same thing,
collectively.
which is not what we believe we should be seeing.
Right. I think that would be where I would go, would be to look out for partners in this, to reach forward, just to get a grasp on the dollar amount we're talking about. We're covering medications for both CMH and non-CMH patients, the transport, and then, of course, Dr. Conlon's price. Any idea what we're spending per year, and is it budgeted?
For medications?
Yeah, all of that.
We can get that information. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, just kind of, I think that would probably be good. But what I'm concerned about is, remember when our medical examiner left us and we had one heck of a deal with him, and then all of a sudden we had to go out into the real world and get a medical examiner, and we were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars difference? Is Dr. Conlon a really good deal? And all of a sudden?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we're not just talking about budgeting to cover our current expenses, we're talking about within a year and a half.
We're looking ahead, yeah.
I would like us to look ahead and not be caught off guard to the potential that we're talking about budgeting at least more money. And that, I think, also partnered with the other 5 counties moving forward. It would be nice to kind of think ahead a little bit on this. Apparently, from what I hear, this issue's been going around and around, and I think it's just time to solve it and just get it done.
If I could add, this is bigger than a regional issue. Several years ago, I was fortunate enough to be invited by the Department of Justice to attend a workshop down in Orlando. Now, Orlando sounds cool, but this was in the middle of July.
That's horrible.
45 jails around the eastern half of the United, all east of the Mississippi gathered down there for a week, and we had small focus groups, and we were to identify the 10 biggest areas requiring federal funding, that we would like federal funding to help solve problems in the jails. A week before, the same focus study group was everybody west of the Mississippi, and they were in Las Vegas.
Oh.
And when we got all done, it was interesting because our 10 or 12 focus groups listed our number one problem, dealing with mental health issues in jails, in treatment, psychiatric services, as well as psychotropic medications. All of us had number one that. And when the program coordinator put up the chart from Las Vegas the week before, all 12 of those groups had the exact same thing as their number one focus. The Department of, or the U.S. Bureau of Justice, Department of Justice was there, their representatives listening to us loud and clear about federal funding to fix these problems. And I think it's been probably 8-9 years since I've been there. We haven't seen a single grant or program coming out to help us with that. So I'm not sure what our study session accomplished.
Well, if we maybe don't have strength in numbers with just the small little Northern Michigan Authority, or we can't, I'd like to see us at least address the idea that we're going to have to be budgeting for this in potentially by next fall, so that would
Finding
be,
a psychiatrist will be very difficult.
that would be my assumption on that, along with the medication part. So we need to either have a Plan A or a Plan B, and if we choose to fight, that's great, but if we lose, we need to have that money at least thought about and set aside, because we have to have psychiatric services in our jail.
That's true.
It's not a want, but it's a need.
It's a need.
Okay, Commissioner?
You know, and I cannot imagine the amount of transport time to get, it certainly makes more sense to bring a doctor into the jail and see inmates in the jail rather than have deputies transporting mentally ill people to an office. I mean, that's just, to me,
agree.
that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
agree.
And this needs to be fixed.
Sounds risky, too.
It is. Anytime you transport outside the jail, it's risky, but
Yeah.
Unmedicated
High-
psychiatric
yeah,
patients.
psychiatric
Yes.
patients, extremely risky,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, we have a
I'm
motion.
looking at you, Dr.
We have-
Johnson.
We have
Bob,
a
if
motion
you
and a
could, maybe
second.
you can put together for us, just a synopsis, if you will, of how much time you figure is involved and how many patients are involved. I'm sure you have those numbers, so,
We have,
Okay.
because I've seen them before.
Bonnie?
The motion kind of went around
Okay.
differently. Can you restate now how you want the motion to read?
Yes. I move that the Grand Traverse County Board be presented a resolution that withdrawing from community mental health for discussion purposes. I also would like our civil counsel to research what the ramifications are to Grand Traverse County. And I'm just going to give you an example, Bonnie, while you're writing, i.e. the defined benefits or, pensions, whatever it is. I would like to know what the ramifications are from our civil counsel as best they can research.
Okay.
And I guess that's it.
Okay, and we have a second. Okay, so we've had a lot of discussion. Let's just bring this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, then we're on to new business, which is recommendation for planning commissioner appointments. Ad hoc committee, who's going to do that?
That one's me.
Okay.
I have a couple of different things. We just had this meeting at 4:30, so that is why you don't have anything with you. But they are asking for immediate approval as the Planning Commission will be meeting before our next meeting. The first thing I have is a letter from TCAPS, from the president of the TCAPS board, letting us know that board trustee Sue Kelly is replacing Scott Hardy as the TCAPS representative on the planning board. According to the bylaws, we do need to have the county board approve that. So I would like to make a motion, I have it written here. I'd like to make a motion to recommend Sue Kelly replace Scott Hardy as the TCAPS representative on the Planning Commission for the remainder of the 3-year term ending December 31st, 2016, effective immediately.
Second?
Support?
Okay, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then we're on to the second part. We did meet with 3 applicants. 2 are returning members. We had 3 really good, I thought, 3 really good people. We did choose to recommend to the full board here tonight to reappoint Peter Albers and Sarna Salzman to the Planning Commission for the remainder of their 3-year term ending December 31st, 2017, effective immediately.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second? Okay, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Anything else?
That was it.
Okay, now we're on to Administrator Controller's Employment Agreement. I wanted to do this correctly. We probably should start with a motion. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have spoken with Administrator Benda, I have spoken with our county prosecutor, and I would like to make the following motion. I move the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners informs Administrator Controller Benda of its intent not to enter into a new employment agreement as required under Section 3E of the Administrator Controller Current Employment Agreement. And be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners directs the prosecutor to prepare a release of claims pursuant to Section 3E of the agreement.
Is there a second?
I will support.
Okay, discussion.
I gotta find 3E.
Okay? Yes.
I received 4 phone calls today from county employees that spoke very highly of Dave Benda and how he treats them, and they would be very saddened to see him gone.
Okay. Dave, do you have anything you want to say? Okay.
You know, I put a letter together for you, and I think my work has been, I'm a hard worker, and I've done a good job as your county administrator, I feel, and, but I also understand that sometimes boards want to go in a new direction when they get new members, and this happens in my field.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I believe Dave's, a very highly respected county administrator. He was highly respected when we recruited him to come here. We interviewed a multitude of candidates and chose what I believe was the best candidate at the time to come in here. I've sat here long enough now to have been through 3 county administrators along the way. So, and all 3 of them are different. All 3 of them have strong points and things that probably I'd like to see them do differently. But the fact is, I believe that, as outlined in Dave's letter here, his success rate in 2.5 years is very high. What we've been able to accomplish here over the last couple of years is great, particularly when we talk about the economic conditions that the county was in. That much of that economic condition was not necessarily, contrary to a lot of different discussions, I don't believe was necessarily the county's fault. The economy turnaround in the slowing down, we went from a 18-19% growth rate down to about 4.5%, and even at the 4.5%, we were twice the national average. But the fact is, we were accustomed to an 18-19% growth rate, and all of a sudden we were dropped down to about 4.5% rate. So the community continues to grow. It requires people that have vision. I believe Dave has a lot of vision, and I think more importantly, he has a lot of experience that we need to weigh in, because the long and the short of it is, none of us have the experience of how this is done in other communities. We have a certain amount of experience of how it's done here, how we foresee that it should be done, but we have no experience of how it's done otherwise, and we need to lean on someone that has that experience.
Any other comments? Doctor?
I have a major issue with this contract. I mean, I don't know how you guys approved a 6-month restitution at the end here on the contract. That's just, and if I was in Dave's position when I did the contract, I'd try to get as much as I could too. But I mean, when I looked at that really set me off as far as, I haven't seen that before, where somebody gets 6 months severance if they get locked out of here. So,
Commissioner.
My reason for making this motion is I really do believe that the board is going in a new direction. And just for the record, I was the lone no vote on that contract, Dr. Johnson.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Can I ask Dave a question?
Oh, of course, yeah.
My concern is that going forward with the new budgeting process, my only concern is that, yes, we are going to go in a different direction. And I just want to know if you could speak to us for a few moments on your level of commitment toward that. I mean, there are quite a few of us who are terribly excited about it. We're ready to get going on it. We're ready to learn about it. As Sonny said, we need someone experienced to help us. Can you speak to us about that?
Okay.
a little bit. Please, a comment from you.
Several of my colleagues are involved in this. You and I sat, I believe, next to each other in one of those sessions. Rob Sorrow is the Allegan County Administrator, highly respected. He's been around a little while. He's kind of a data geek, but he's found a way to do it. He got Herman Miller to help him out. But, a lot of counties and cities are doing performance measures. But the other end of this is, it takes a commitment not only from the administrator, but it takes a commitment from the board, and it takes a commitment of resources, and it takes a commitment throughout the organization to its success. And, I'm not opposed to doing it. I just, right now I'm looking at, we don't have an HR director. I have no assistant. I got Dean Bott, who is in the middle of an audit, and there's just nobody to delegate anything to. So, it depends on the board's level of commitment to doing it. I mean, if the board gets really excited about it, and they get to the part where they talk about staff and resources, and they make the proper commitments, I'm on board. But, I just want to throw that caveat. This is a lot of work for the organization, for everyone in the organization, and, you got to be committed to it. Everybody's got, and from the top down, it's got to be a commitment. So, I'll swim as fast as I can with it.
Okay.
Any more comments? Yes.
I would just make a comment on Commissioner Johnson's comment about the contract. I'd like to have somebody sitting in a seat on my side able to make them contracts for us. I mean, if he can get that contract for him, that type of contract, he can do it for us.
Okay.
But with the community policing officers, we intervened. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay, any more comments? Then let's bring this to a vote. Can I do a voice vote on this to start with?
Probably should do a roll call.
Okay, then let's do a roll call.
So can you read the motion again, please? Thank you.
I have listened to the tape because the motion was so long. So if
Would you
you
like me
have
to
it in
read it
writing.
again? Yes.
Please.
I move the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners informs the administrator controller of its intent not to enter into a new employment agreement as required under Section 3E of the Administrator Controller Current Employment Agreement, and be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners directs the prosecuting attorney to prepare a release of claims pursuant to Section 3E of the agreement. When I did talk to Dave about this morning, he did indicate that there are some things that he wants to finish up. I would envision that a separation date of around July 1st if the motion passes, and it either will or it won't.
Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Klaus?
No.
Wheelock?
No.
Kropa?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, now it's on for second public comment. Do we need to read that again? We don't, do we, Bonnie?
No, we do not.
Okay, anybody? Okay, then we're closing that. Commissioner reports.
I wanted to talk about Kids Cove.
About what?
Kids Cove.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say, I know, because look at how excited John is.
He woke up.
Yes, the president of our Parks Board.
He did, too.
The Home Depot has been generous to donate time in the Depot Crew, which is a group with them that does community projects along with Seeds. And other volunteers will be helping with the demolition of Kids Cove beginning the week of May 4th. And we have worked very hard on this to retain the markers and reach out to the group and make sure that we followed through on our motion. And I just wanted to say, to follow up to that, the business development team for County Parks met today at noon and walked the Civic Center grounds. As you know, we've reported to you our goal this year is the Civic Center Of course, last year we did Twin Lakes, and the year before we did Power Island, so we're moving forward on that. And I thought we had a really great meeting. President Roth is on that team, as well as, I don't think anybody else in here, but I am on it. And we're coming up with some ideas. We have a very spirited, positive soul as our Parks Director, and she is wanting to make lemonade out of lemons and work real hard to bring some positive energy to the Civic Center. So I just wanted to let you know, first of all, we are seeking volunteers to help us. If anyone from the county is willing to help, they can contact Christine Erickson. I will certainly be helping along with John, and like I said, our thanks to the Home Depot and Seeds for their help as well. And we will be doing it all through a plan set forth with the DEQ for the removal and remediation of the tainted lumber and wood chips.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Yes.
I just, like a question then, moving forward, are you gonna start a discussion about what's gonna happen or replacement? I know I personally, as a county board member, would like to see some type of public-private collaboration and build it bigger and better.
Well, that's right. I should be clear. That was really the topic du jour of the BDT. We are discussing some other little ideas for the Civic Center, and Chris and her team, Christine Erickson and her team, are working real hard on numbers and things and looking at revenue-raising potential in the Civic Center. But the playground isn't a revenue-raising potential. It's just something for our community spirit that we think we need to do. We discussed heavily the idea of not putting it back on the same property that it's located on. While the soil has been cleared by the DEQ to still be within residential requirements for arsenic levels, they just told us that the wood chips were not. We wanted to bring forward to our full Parks Board the idea of not building on that property or putting a dog park on that property where dogs tend to like to dig up dirt. So we're envisioning look at Wendy, no? Can we not put a dog park on no? Okay. So we are talking about currently just seeding over that property as soon as it is removed in a few weeks. And then we're looking at alternative ideas of where to place a play structure. But a play structure is a priority, certainly of our business development team, and I really think the Parks Department as a whole.
Can we get brownfield money for that?
I brought that up today.
Contaminated.
I did bring that up today.
It's perfect.
And Christine Erickson, she's as sweet as can be, and she says, I'll look into that. And Pete Albert says, I don't think we need to contact Dean Durancy about that. But we did talk about the potential for grants for cleanup and remediation.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
I've already been pounding the pavement, asking potential donors to donate for a play structure on the Civic Center property somewhere. And I'm getting positive responses, but needless to say, the business development team and the Parks Board would need to get together and put some numbers and a plan and where they envision where it is, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, there is interest in the community in supporting a structure.
Is the Carter kids thing completely off the, is it a possibility we could approach him?
We discussed that today at our BDT as well. And
I just as soon let the Parks Board do their thing first, and because I'm sure that they will come with a
I did just want the
good
Board of
plan.
Commissioners to know when they see action and movement at the Civic Center and what was going on, and certainly shamelessly solicit your help for the work as well, if you're available that week.
Okay, we're on notices, announcements, or reports rather, commissioner reports. Anything else? How about notices and announcements? All right. Do we need a closed session, Mr. Benda?
We do not.
Okay. We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.